so much, Noor. Good afternoon, everyone, and actually good evening, probably good morning for some. As Nora said, I'm Angelou. I am the founder and CEO of Greenie Youth Foundation. I'd like to start off by thanking my grandmother for giving me that initial connection to nature. And even though, we had a 4x6 garden in Jersey City, New Jersey, that's where my first introduction to nature and the outdoors was really fostered. I'd like to also thank my mother, who gave me a bird's eye view of what it means to be a kick-ass entrepreneur. She's always had her own business, and I've watched her from various points, just leading business and leading people. I'd also like to thank my college, my alma mater, Spelman College, for really teaching me the importance of sisterhood, of community, and also for being the change that you want to see. And I always love quotes starting off, and I think it's important. The quote that I love the most is very, I think, appropriate for this time, and it's Angela Davis's quote. And the quote is, I'm no longer accepting the things I cannot change, but I'm changing the things that I can no longer accept. I think that's really critically important for what we're all going to be saying as change makers. But just a little bit more about myself. I grew up in Jersey City, but in upstate New York is where my parents had a 54-acre farm. And that's really where, in addition to my grandmother's connection to nature for me, it was in these woods, these 54 acres in upstate New York, where I developed this love affair with the outdoors. But because of the color of my skin, and because of the fact that I was this little brown girl, and also growing up as a young woman, it was the becoming an environmentalist or any career in natural resource management wasn't necessarily something that I was encouraged to do. And later, as I asked my parents, my mom was like, well, I just didn't feel comfortable having you in that field because it doesn't feel welcoming. It wasn't welcoming for me. So I certainly didn't think it would be welcoming for our daughter. So what I'm trying to say to you all is that the environmental sector has an access equity issue. It's what Dr. Dorcetta Taylor calls an eternal stereotype. And the stereotype is that people of color are not interested in the environment, which is absolutely insane. From research that I've done, and I'm sure a lot of you have done, that people of color, as Nora has opened up, have a very deep relationship with land, a very a strong symbiotic relationship and love with land. It's where you eat from, and it's where you thrive from. So we know that that's insane. So the question becomes, where did that come about? And it's really because you often hear people say, well, people of color have to think about things like, poverty and hunger and education and unemployment rates. Well, all of that is true. Those are things that we have to think about. But let's not forget the fact that there is so much history that makes those things on the forefront of our minds, and things that because of equity issues, those are things that we have to think about. But my point that I often make, and that we've been doing within our organization, is intersectionality. We have to think about those things through the lens of historical institutional racism, basically. So, we can't talk about unemployment without talking about jobs for young people or adults in the green industry. We can't talk about poor health without talking about urban farms and ways in which people can see the environment as a way for them to eat. So in other words, we, as our former president Barack Obama said, we can't talk about sustainability without talking about economics. And that's something that's really, it's been an uphill battle. As I said, I'm the founder of Greenie Youth Foundation. It's an organization that's been working for almost 15 years on the mission of engaging underrepresented youth and young adults while connecting them to the outdoors and careers in conservation. Our vision is quite simple: to make the environmental sector representative of society. It is so far from that as we speak right now. It's so homogeneous. It's mainly, when I first started, it was mainly male and white. Now there's more women in the movement, but it's still very much white. And it certainly does not have an inclusive feel to it. I started off in, doing land conservation for the Trust for Public Land. Then I did it for the Department of Agriculture, and there's still so much work to be done. At Greening Youth Foundation, we probably engage close to 20,000 young people, whether it's in environmental education programs, youth conservation core programs, working with National Park Service, Forest Service, and other federal land management agencies, as well as our Urban Youth Corps program. And our whole focus is really giving access and opportunity to those who have not been at the table. And that's also what my book, Engage, Connect, Protect, Empowering Diverse Youth as empowering young adults as environmental leaders. I was like, what's the name of my book again? But yes, that book, the focus is really debunking a lot of the myths that exist within the environmental sector as it relates to people of color. It's sample curriculum, because a lot of people are like, well, how do you reach people of color around environmentalism? So it's sample curriculum of how to speak certain language, maybe holding up different celebrities and icons, making that material really pop and resonate for the audience you're trying to reach. And then it's also a collection of resources. So I no longer want to hear people saying, I would love to engage more people of color, I just don't know where to look. Are they out there? So that's another thing that this book is doing. It's providing all of the lists of Native Americans, Asian Americans, Latinos, African Americans, all these people that are successfully working in this place. So it's really a resource guide for mainstream environmental organizations. So I obviously can go much longer, but I want us to all, focus on, and I'm sure you're seeing now with this COVID-19, as we talk about, sheltering in place and, getting outside and doing things while doing social distancing, we see that there's access equity there, issues there as well, because not everybody can go in their backyard and enjoy nature. So these are some of the things that we're working on. But what I see is that we have to focus on community. So I'd like to end with another one of my favorite quotes by Wade Davis, which is, other cultures are not failed attempts at being you. They are unique manifestations of the human spirit. Let's try to be more of a community. Thank you.